I was doing the show with Tony this morning. We were talking to all these people about, there was a chance. One guy called in and he said, I have this S&P position on, I need the or I had this NASDAQ position on. Is it possible that the Qs could get a rally up to some crazy number? Listen, anything can happen in this market. They could have a rally of 1,000 or 2,000 points in the Qs in the next, Tony said, I go in the next day or so, in next week. And Tony goes, it could happen in the next 15 minutes. And it happened 15, like an hour later.
Here we are. Here we are.
Yeah. I think this is an incredibly dangerous road. We are kowtowing to the whims of a madman, plain and simple. I mean, anybody can say whatever they want about, oh, this is genius and this is that. This is none of the above. This is somebody with an IQ of 90, which is considered dull. And this is somebody with an economic IQ of 90 and an economic laziness on a scale of 1 to 10 of about an 11. And this is what happens when this is the worst possible scenario for marketplace integrity. Nothing could be worse. Nobody wants to see down 5% a day, down 5% for 3 days in a row. Nobody wants to see a crash followed by a V bottom, and nobody wants to see a bonds implode followed by, it's not healthy. It scares the children. There's nothing.
No kidding. Because you're taking the largest and most stable assets on earth, $1 trillion marketplace. This isn't GameStop. This isn't Fartcoin. This is the U.S. bond market. This is the largest publicly traded enterprises on earth. And they're being thrown around right now like a bucket shop, like Stratton Oakmont is spinning pump and dump.
Yeah, no, this is pure. It's destabilization at its finest, and it's executed at its worst. And it's like this is a destruction of wealth. Like, I know what they're going to say. Well, look at this. The Dow was up 2,600 today, biggest up day ever. This is a mass destruction of wealth in the process. And because the rules, Dylan, if you make $1 million and you lose $1 million, you're actually down $1 million. You're not even. And this was a mass destruction of wealth. This was, people lost money. They got margin called out. They got forced to liquidate. This was the worst possible thing. And it's kind of sad. And it's all about manipulation. It's all about one person's ego. And I don't, if you have a personality disorder or you're mentally, there's something wrong with you mentally, then I'll give that person a break because that person is who that person is. And I will blame everybody else around that person who enabled that person and who supported that person. So Trump is what he is. And he didn't do anything that would surprise anybody that I know. This is what he is. He's been like this for 30, 40 years. He hasn't changed.
Sure.
He is what he is. He's this despicable character, and this is what he does. But the people that enable him, those are the people I blame. This is all about the Elon Musks, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Jeff Bezos, the Charles Schwabs, the different firms, the interactive brokers, the Robinhoods, the everybody that put up the money, the Coinbases, the Brian Armstrongs of the world, who I like, who I thought I liked. But, these are all the enablers out there that funded this. And it just drives me freaking crazy. It really does.
Do you think the Trump family is trading ahead of these announcements?
No. He's too stupid and they're too stupid. No, not a chance in hell. Plus, it's not worth it. They don't need to. The grift is on for hundreds of billions of dollars. They're not going to trade in front of this stuff. That'd be the dumbest thing ever. That's traceable. No, not a chance. The Trump family's not Why do they need to trade in?
Because you're saying they're just monetizing it all through the crypto backdoor, 500 billion at a time.
Crypto backdoor and among every other possible deal, every other deal possible. You don't need to. They're not going to sell they're not going to buy S&Ps. No, there's no chance that they are in any way, shape, or form monetizing this through the markets. Not a chance. I don't even think they trade anything. I mean, other than their whatever stocks they own, DJT, whatever DJT is. I don't really trade it. Nobody really trades it at all. So I'm not sure where that thing trades. But I guess my point, no, they're not. Yeah, the stock.
So how do we recover? I mean, so let's just set aside our various opinions, and we're going to have a lot of agreement on this thing, whatever. How do we, the participants in the stock market, and both of us are above average participants by virtue of influence and visibility. And there are people, there's another, let's say 10,000 people that are highly visible and have some degree of influence, from Warren Buffett through Bill Ackman, through all the way down to everybody at CNBC and Bloomberg and the whole financial press, Wall Street Journal, all the tasty traders, on and on. How do we protect the integrity of the market for our, obviously Trump does not value the integrity of the American marketplace. Obviously the people around him, I would include the entire Republican Party, by the way, do not value the integrity of the U.S. marketplace. But for all of us, and it's not just for like you and me, it's for tens, hundreds of millions of Americans, and for billions of people around the world, actually, the integrity of the U.S. stock market is foundational to the health of the world. And to compromise the integrity of the U.S. financial markets is to put billions of lives in jeopardy of varying degrees of degradation.
There used to be one of the reasons we had regulatory bodies, and one of the reasons we had agencies in Washington like the SEC and the CFTC and FINRA and things like that.
OCD.
Well, OCC is clearing, but yeah, one of the reasons we had all these things, Dylan, was in an effort to make sure that markets were not manipulated. But the first thing that this administration did was basically either fire everybody or make sure that everybody quit. And so, at this point, there are no lawyers left at the SEC. There are no lawyers left at FINRA. I mean, it's slim pickings, and there are no regulatory boundaries anymore, almost anywhere. So, you can almost get away with anything or do anything if you wanted to, and that's essentially what they're doing. Market manipulation is something that it's the lack of market manipulation, I should say, is something that has protected, the integrity of everything that we do for the last, 5 decades, whatever you want to say. And it's all out the window now. Now it's just a game. Trump has gamified markets so that with a single tweet, you can move the markets. You can move a stock like Tesla $35 or a stock like Apple $20 or, it doesn't matter, Meta $50.
You can move the NASDAQ plus or minus 5%.
Yeah, the NASDAQ's right now, as we're talking, the NASDAQ's up 1,600. That's a, let's call it an 8% move, whatever you want to say. But it's crazy. Down 20% from top to bottom, up 8% on a single, uptick. They moved 1,200 points yesterday afternoon. That's not healthy, and it's not healthy for a couple different reasons. One, it becomes very difficult to raise capital because nobody really can put any, it's very difficult to put valuations around anything, and it's very difficult to get investors to buy into an IPO or any kind of a capital raise. That's number one. Number two, it destroys the valuations of private companies, and there's a huge private company market. So when we said last week that this sell-off, lost about 5 to 7 trillion in equity in equity market cap and probably another 5 trillion in the bond market. One of the things that we didn't take into account was the OTC market, where it probably destroyed an equal amount of money. That's the non-public, equity marketplace, and that's the over-the-counter bond marketplace. And so it's probably was more like double whatever the number was. But people don't talk about that. And I think it's reasonable. Okay, so you get a guy, whoever it might be whoever went out and talked to Trump yesterday, whoever Treasury Secretary is, and some huge donors, and they say, listen, get your crap together and call this crap off. Call it a win, however you want to, but call this crap off. The thing we've been saying all week is he's going to say it's a win somehow, and he's going to call this crap off because that'll make his donors happy, and that'll save face. And that's exactly what they did. It was according to script. I wrote this script last weekend. This is the script. This is the playbook. This is the most obvious, lamest, it's an embarrassment, and it doesn't help our standings on a global scale. On a global scale, we're a laughing stock, and we've been exposed.
And we're a pariah. I mean, the incentive for everybody in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East to create basically a non-USA trading region has never been higher. And they I hereby change my opinion tweets only increase the incentive to avoid the United States whenever and wherever possible, so that you can have a counterparty that is predictable.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is the wrong playbook, and this is a dangerous playbook. Makes me feel the most uncomfortable that I felt. And listen, and I needed a rally today of this proportion. So, I mean, I'm not talking in my book like this is a bad thing. I mean, this is if we close here today, I'll have one of the best days of my career. All right, just because of this rally, because I was long. But I don't care. Like, it doesn't mean anything to me. That's all. I don't care.
Do you think there's any solution to be had here? Like, in other words, when Liz Truss, who's the closest comparison, was the brief Prime Minister of England and was exhibiting asserting insane economic policies, she was quickly removed for insanity.
Yep.
In a parliamentary system, which America does not have, someone exhibiting this behavior would be removed immediately for obvious reasons.
Yep.
I don't see a world where this man is removed in the near term.
No. I mean, if you're talking about the 25th,
there's no such thing as no confidence vote. There's no impeachment. There's no mechanism of reducing his power.
This is America. We don't do that. There's a 25th Amendment, which allows you to remove somebody from office if they're, if they're impeached or whatever. But that's about it. There's not, it's a very difficult process. And I don't think that's even been considered. It should be considered because there's definitely, there's a mental acuity question. There's a dementia question. There's a lot of questions about, competency and ability to rationalize or anything, but I don't see it happening.
So what is your advice to all of us in terms of maintaining a level of engagement with the financial markets in the face of the fact that now the puppet master, apparently delightful, like I believe Trump delights in the appearance of his extraordinary global power to jerk around the global bond and stock markets and to jerk around all the countries of the world?
Well, you read the the tweet, or however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it couldn't have been any more clear. It was like the king was talking to his subjects.
I hereby do announce.
I hereby announce. I mean, I don't know if Dylan Radigan uses the term hereby very often. I don't.
I mean, I have not yet used it. I mean, maybe I'm still too young. Maybe when I get older,
I might try
to do it hereby.
I might try it with my wife tonight. I hereby announce that that I don't. At least he didn't. I mean, at least I was worried. I was worried for a second we were going to get my fellow Americans. I mean, I'm not sure.
But I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, do you believe that we are in for 4 years of this? And what does the market look like? I mean, we're 3 months in.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we're a year and a half from the midterm elections. But yeah, sure. 3.5 more years. Yeah.
And if he can basically tweet every day and spin the market, I mean, I feel like there's a point where people disengage from the financial markets, I guess is my concern.
You're going to
stop playing, as it were.
You're going to see it already. It's not even, it's going to happen now. Like, it's not even, this is not something
you're saying the damage is done.
Yeah, this is happening now. You're going to see there's going to be a huge trend away from, there's going to be a change in the way people interact in the markets, because we talked about this a little this morning. You can throw out anything you use traditionally. Like, traditionally, a Dylan Radigan, you were originally hired out of college to talk about fundamentals, interview people with, different kinds of analysis and things like that. None of it matters anymore.
Meaningless.
It's meaningless. Exactly. So what are your buddies at CNBC going to do now? I mean, you're going to sit there and try to predict, when is Trump going to make his next tweet?
Because interviewing the CEO of FedEx or Joe technical analyst is useless in a world where the entire market is as held on. And do you really think, I mean, where are we with Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, Elon Musk? I mean, there must be someone who
you're talking about
walk into the room and be like, stop this, stop.
Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent are two of the most tone-deaf people I've ever seen in my entire life. Elon Musk is not tone deaf. Elon is a different type of creature. He's on the spectrum. He's not afraid to call somebody out, as he did, as he did this week with Peter Navarro. Yeah, I mean, he's not afraid to call somebody out. He is a different kind of creature. But the problem with Elon is, Elon didn't know who he was getting into bed with. And it looks like he's made that mistake many times in his life. That's why he has like 15 kids. but he didn't understand the implications of getting into bed with a taker, a pure narcissist who doesn't really care what you think. And in the case of Elon now, he's done a really good job at destroying a lot of his own wealth. People talk about Tesla it's 260 now, which is today on a $40 rally today, which is huge. So he's made back some money, but the SpaceX valuation get crushed. The XAI valuations got crushed. Everything got annihilated in this down move. So it was way more than just Tesla. I mean, he got lucky today that they bounced back. But this is what I expected, a huge, huge rally. I wrote about it on Sunday. I talked about it this morning. I said we're on the precipice of a massive rally that is going to be caused because they're going to call off the tariffs and they are going to make up some phony win. And we talked about this. This was the playbook. This is a Soviet playbook. This is a Chinese playbook. This is a North Korean playbook. Like, this is the worst kind of democracy, and this is the worst kind of market manipulation we've ever experienced from a U.S. president. It's sad. And listen, I love this business. And I love what we do. And I think individual consumers should have an opportunity to build wealth through the markets. And I
feel like there's a lot of people who when the markets sell off the way that they did in the last week, there are plenty of people, says the older retired people, who sell because they're afraid they're going to lose their retirement.
Yeah, of course, Dylan. Yeah, absolutely.
And the market rips back up, and then they want to buy back in, and then maybe they buy back in, but they do it at a much higher price, and they lose a bunch of money. It's super damaging.
100%. It's damaging. It's scary. It's like, this is stuff. It's almost like a good spy novel, and it's like, it's almost too perfect.
Like a James Bond, the evil, the Mad King has taken over the Americans. But do you think there's a possibility that this temperament migrates to the Pentagon?
It's a concern for everybody. I mean, what scares me is that, and I discussed this morning, is that the U.S. has been exposed. We are vulnerable. And we're vulnerable to the rest of the world. That's why you saw the bonds collapse last night. That's why you saw stocks down so much. And whenever you get vulnerable to the totality of everything else, you have to try to reassert dominance in some way. And I'm not exactly sure how you do that. As Russia will learn, it will take decades for them. As China has learned, it's taken decades for them. I don't think it's an easy thing to do. And I think that, we need to respect the fact that we're on the cusp of blowing that.
What's your opinion of the U.S. dollar in this mess?
I've hated the U.S. dollar now for the last year. So none of this, as far as U.S. dollar goes, is a surprise to me. I think the U.S. dollar has been grossly overbought for, whatever you want to say, 7 years, 10 years. I don't like the U.S. dollar at all. I haven't. It's not going to change my opinion on the U.S. dollar. I'm going to stay short the U.S. dollar.
Do you think the U.S. reserve status is at risk because of this situation? The dollar status?
Not yet, but is it at some point? I mean, how could it not be?
Mm-hmm.
How could it not be? I mean, we have to think about things like that. And I got to say, at some point it could be, if the whole rest of the world says F you.
Do you think this is a huge opportunity for London or even Frankfurt or Milan or Hong Kong to try to step up into the void of confidence in American capital markets?
What's weird is I'm not so sure that any of those places are capable of it. Is it an opportunity? Yeah, sure. It's an opportunity. I don't think they have the skill set or the market structure.
The only one. What about London? Of all,
not a chance. I have been.
It's still English language. Big community. No,
not a chance. We have been listed on the London Stock Exchange now for the last 4 years. It is, in my opinion,
it's a ghost town.
It's a ghost town. It's not capable of anything. It can't even be competitive. If you're going to talk about competitive marketplaces, I'm not even sure there is one yet. I think that there's an opportunity now more than ever for a competitor, for a disruptor to step in. I don't think that exchange exists yet. And I think that's what decentralization is all about. And I blame, listen, the New York Stock Exchange is just as responsible for this as an enabler to Trump's psychosis as a as Bezos is or Zuckerberg is. I mean, the New York
How are they enablers?
Because they're supporters. They're fundraisers. That this is what they wanted. They got what they wanted. Same thing with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Same thing with different exchanges all over. That basically, this is the person they wanted to essentially lead the regulatory bodies.
Volatility's got to come in the short term.
Volatility
having days. We can't keep having days like this.
Volatility today has the potential to have the largest down day in volatility in that I can remember. I mean, right now the VIX futures are down $11 as we're talking. And when you think about VIX futures down $11 on, let's call it, 25% right now, but it's going to even be more than that. I'm not sure where we're going to end up today, but it's going to be one of the largest down days in history in volatility. It's going to come in massive numbers today.
Is there a world where this becomes predictable, sort of like the old oil trade from last year, where when there's saber rattling between Iran and Israel and oil rallies, it was a good short? This was not a call. He didn't call off the tariffs, obviously. He announced a 90-day pause on the countries that were nice to him or whatever he said.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing
my point is, are we going to have another? It's going to actually be predictable. We're going to get another big sell-off at some point in the next few months. When that happens, you should buy them because he's going to kick these. This is going to become a predictable routine.
Well, the crazy thing about all this
force.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. But the crazy thing about all this is it's kind of exactly that. What's going to stop? That's why I said we're going to. When I first got in this business, 1981, I think it was 1980. Let's say 80, 81. I don't remember exactly. And there was a group of guys that I worked with. And I didn't know them. I just met them when I got onto Wall Street. And they would sit around, and they were a bunch of technicians, and they would sit around and they would try to guess when Joseph Granville would write his next newsletter, basically either going the Black Monday route or the, close your eyes and buy them route. Okay. And their whole business was like four guys, and their whole business was trying to predict Joseph Granville's next newsletter. Like, that's the business they built. And they had like a cult-like following that would follow these guys to try to predict Joseph Granville's next Monday newsletter. I don't know if you remember it, but it was always like, what should a new subscriber do? And I kind of equate what we're seeing right now to that same kind of thing. That is going to be the future of CNBC, of Bloomberg. It's not going to be, hey, we're interviewing
CEO this, earnings that, rates this.
Do I really need to talk to the economist to the lead economist at JP Morgan anymore? Who the hell cares? I mean, I love our mechanics at Tasty because that is, that'll never go away. But what's the point of talking to the lead economist? What's the point of talking to a Fed governor? Only person you need to talk to is Trump. When are you going to do your next thing?
And I don't know. And I'm just saying purely from a trading standpoint, setting aside all the obvious issues, we know he's always going to have a next thing. We know his next thing's always going to be some sort of threat of economic catastrophe. And we know his next thing is going to be some sort of a reprieve.
Yeah. Like, I can guarantee you with what happened today, when it all boils down to it, they'll figure out that it's just another one of his, just complete scams or whatever. That's all it'll come down to. But when it all boils down, they'll figure out, oh, you know what? There's really nothing here. Like the 75 countries probably didn't have any tariffs to start with. There was no trade.
Of course.
It's going to be the most ridiculous thing. It's going to be like the reciprocal tariffs that he introduced last time, when it turned out that was all just made up AI bullshit. All of it, from the formula to the countries. And this is going to be the same thing. We're letting 75 countries. Oh, really? Okay, let's see how that plays out.
And so from a trading perspective, can I get short the rallies on Trump tariff relief and long the dips? Is he so psychotically predictable?
Yeah.
That you can short this rally soon and wait for it to roll over once again?
I think so. The answer is I think so. I don't know. I think so. But I'm not selling them today. That's for sure.
No, I'm not saying, I know, I get it, but I'm just saying that there's because obviously if this is a rational actor who wanted to confront China on their trade practices, that would be a specific bilateral engagement. You wouldn't declare global economic world war like a 2-year-old and then do I hereby retract my threats from the people that were nice to me, which includes the Penguin Island.
Of course.
But I mean, China's the entire behavior is, to call it unprofessional is an insult to people who behave unprofessionally.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is probably done from a golf cart in Florida.
In Boca?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. I mean, that's the joke of this whole thing. It's probably, is looking at his distance to the hole and deciding, all right, just wave this, do this, let's do this, whatever.
Hey, Dan, write this tweet for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see it. Let me read it. Okay, send it. Yeah.
It's a very interesting. It's an interesting world.
Do you think of? Let me just to try to step away from the stupidity of this. Does this guarantee a recession? Should we be invested? You be in trading around it, regardless of whatever ups and downs at this point. The fact that the world knows that the American economic leadership is juvenile and clownish and unpredictable massively increases the probability of a global recession. Regardless, at this point, is that a tradable fact?
No, it's not tradable, and I don't think about things in those terms, because recessions are something that we figure out, later in the next life. That we had a recession in the last life, and recessions by definition aren't tradable. These are much more tradable. What we're seeing happen right now is, in my opinion, more interesting because it is more tradable. Anyway,
I mean, is there an evident trade to you at this exact moment?
No, not at all. I mean, I had been buying stuff for the last couple of days nonstop. So, I mean, I'm, like I said, This is a great move for me today. I'm not complaining one bit about the move itself, but I think that I care deeply that, I live a different life than Trump and all his whatever. I care about the hundreds of thousands of customers we have that had to take a lot of pain during that sell-off, and like every investor at every firm. So I don't care if you were at Tasty or TD or E-Trade or Schwab, Fidelity, Interactive Brokers, whatever company you were at, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, every individual investor in America got beat up bad on that down move. And if you didn't take any action at all, which is a miracle if you didn't do anything at all, I would say most people did something. Because we had sellers. Most people lightened up, Most people sold something against their position. Most people hedged their stuff. Most people did a lot of different things. All of that served to lock in losses. But people had every right to be scared. They had every right not to trust the judgment of somebody that obviously has no idea what they're doing. And then just to reverse it, which doesn't surprise me at all, it's like you don't get that money back. You get a portion of it back if you're lucky. That's it. You don't get it back.
It made everybody poorer, especially made the small and mid-sized investor poorer by a lot.
Tony and I were buying stock yesterday afternoon because we thought we were both buying stock yesterday afternoon. A couple of different stocks, Apple, Reddit, NVIDIA. And we were sitting there looking at each other going, are we the stupidest investor? Like, are we the dumbest humans? Because last night, the S&Ps were down another 2%, and these stocks were.
It was a 5% day, and then the bond market. I mean, it's horrible.
And the bond market, everything else, and we're sitting there going to each other, how dumb are we? Like, how could we be the only people buying here? Nobody's buying. Like, why are we buying anything? And then so, but we didn't buy that much. We just bought enough to because we felt like it was oversold. We had to. And then they were down more this morning, so we bought a little more this morning, and it was like, But the average consumer does not do that. That's not in their blood. I'm just a sick trader who's been doing this for 40 freaking years. And so I don't care. Like, that's just the way I think. I'm going to do the opposite of everybody else is going to do. But nobody else thinks like that. And I'm glad they don't. And I just think that people got beat up. I know people got beat up. And so this does not make it even. You go down 100, you go up 100. You're not even. Does not work like that. And so
is there safety or opportunity in moving money out of America via even using ETFs into your EZU in Europe, the EWW in Mexico, whatever the UK, nothing.
No, there's not enough stuff. The rest of the world is lame. The one thing about America is that we have amazing liquidity, great products, great markets. They don't have these anywhere else in the world. You struggle to find things, you struggle to find ways to trade. You struggle to find ways to participate, whether it's India, UK, China, South Korea, Russia, it doesn't matter. You struggle to find ways to build wealth outside of whatever it is that you do yourself. It's next to impossible. America is the marketplace of opportunity. Everybody comes here. Everybody trades here. Everybody invests here. Everybody raises capital here. To mess with the integrity of that system is anti-American. It's anti-democracy. Okay? It's not what we're about. And does not support the consumer. But again, I'm not even blaming Trump, because although he drives me crazy and I can't stand him, he's not even at fault here. It's almost because he hasn't changed his stripes. It's all the idiots that enabled him that drive me crazy. It's the people that are supposed to be smart enough. It's the Bill Ackmans of the world. It's the CEO of Blackstone, it's the BlackRocks and Blackstones and the Charles Schwabs of the world. Those are the people that drive me crazy, because those are the people that, you get what you paid for it. Now here you go.
And we all expect more from them ultimately in terms
of course.
Even if you have a different point of view on morals or values,
of course,
we expect more from them on just basic integrity of the American financial system.
All they thought they were getting was a reduction in capital gains tax and potentially, lower income tax brackets. So they thought, hey, you know what? How do we lose here? Well, you lose 40% of your market value. There you lose.
Mm-hmm. And you have a permanent impairment on the integrity of the U.S. market, or at least an impairment that will last for the next 4 years.
And what's your legacy now? Elon, what's your legacy? Half the world thinks you're the biggest jerk ever. What about you, Zuckerberg? Half the world thinks you're the biggest jerk ever. Same with you, Bezos. You could have gone on top. Now everybody thinks your ex-wife God,
the
you're a
coolest.
piece of crap.
Right. Right.
And
then they have all these small fry like David Sachs and Chamath Palpatine.
of course, those guys are absolute pieces of shit. I cannot stand them. Their hypocrisy, their total nonstop bullshit that they
and the arrogance
drives me out of my mind. I totally agree. Every one of those things, I freaking hate them.
Are you kidding me? They wouldn't
do one thing to help one person. Tony and I spent 3 hours this morning just answering questions from people calling in from anywhere. You didn't have to be our customer. No, we'll just answer your question. Hey, you want to know what to do with this position? Or, hey, you know what? You're nervous. I understand it. The market's crashing. You're nervous. Here, we'll give you some peace of mind. Those guys, they wouldn't help their mother.
It's true. I was talking to Vecchio and Spivak the other day maybe yesterday, about how at least back in the old days, the rich guys were more charismatic, if nothing else. That the old kingpins from Los Angeles or Texas, T. Boone Pickens or New York or Chicago were vastly more appealing. Like this generation of oligarchs from San Francisco is just despicable and disgusting group of men. I mean, every last one of them is just the worst.
It's funny. We used to get all over the case of these really rich athletes because they were kind of like, jerks and stuff. These guys look like gods to me as compared to these billionaires. These athletes that make, $100 million a year, whatever, $50 million a year, they're so nice.
Yeah.
They're in a different world. They understand, hey, it's we're nothing without you guys. But these other guys, they don't understand that. You think Zuckerberg understands that? Think Bezos does? Musk doesn't, for sure doesn't. No clue.
For sure.
And they don't understand. You're nothing with all of us.
Nothing.
Without us. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's remarkable. So what are your 2 cents from a trade? Is there anything to be done here on the back end of the super rally of the momentary rally, or is it?
I'm trying extra hard to roll up puts right now to stay delta neutral to a little bit long. Hopefully I think this got more legs than this, I would hope. But I don't think it's going there's a lot of internal damage in the market. I think that we have to realize that. But I think today's rally, I would think it's too strong to sell off, but who knows? I said that yesterday.
It could be amazing. This thing we have another. I could be talking to Ilya and Chris in an hour, and we could be down 5%. When it turns out that the 75 countries exclude all of Europe, they exclude 90% of the trading volume. It's absurd.
It's not beyond Trump and his merry band of grifters to have the 75 lowest participants in there that make up 5 or 10% of all the tariff wars, and it is probably well within their brainless formulas. So let's leave it there.